Hi, everyone. This is Dianne Kaler. I'm the Director of Nutrition Therapy Institute. I want to welcome you back to another NTI PodTalk. Today, we're talking with Robin Hutchinson from Healthy Nest Nutrition. And Robin is a graduate of NTI, and she's going to tell us all about her path that she has taken since graduation. Thank you so much for being here today, Robin. It's a pleasure to see you again. It's been a while since we've seen each other, so it's so nice to see you again. And before we kind of get started on the full conversation, I'd really like to hear you talk about, number one, what prompted your passion to want to learn about nutrition, and then what made you choose NTI? I think all of our students, grads, and also prospective students would be really interested in hearing your story.
Okay, great. Well, it's nice to be here and it's nice to see you.
Yeah.
It's nice to catch up. So I came to the NTI experience from a very organic way. So I had just had my children and I wasn't feeling great. And each one of my kiddos had issues around food, energy, focus, and learning. And otherwise. And I went down the rabbit hole of trying to figure it out myself and realized that I didn't understand the science. I just didn't have the science background. And instead of piecemealing it together and kind of wishing myself to the knowledge that I needed, I just had this very clear vision of if I understood how the body worked a little bit better or a lot better, then I could help myself and my family. And so that's what drove me. The other piece of that is I've been a foodie since way back. And so I cooked a lot, and that's always been a priority for me. And so I did believe in cooking good food. And then as I was raising a young family, I realized that it could be more than just good food. It could be, helpful in the rest of our lives. So that whole food is medicine perspective. And so it became very clear that this is what I should do. One day I just decided I needed answers and I needed to figure it out. So I started looking around at programs, and I for a second was going to drive all the way to Greeley and get another BS, or there were a couple of online things, and I didn't want that. And then I literally stumbled on the fact that there was a local institute, was so happy, did a little happy dance, and signed up like 2 days later.
Yeah.
I needed that camaraderie. I knew if I was going to be learning science, I kind of wanted an in-person as much as possible. And so I was intrigued by that. I liked the small class sizes. I liked the discussion base. I liked that you were going to stretch me, kind of scientifically and make me think different than I had prior. And so all of that kind of, it was an easy decision to come to the Institute and just kind of dive in.
Yeah. That story that you told is so consistent with so many people who come to NTI. Exactly my story as well. Our listeners and watchers will know that I'm also a graduate of NTI. Exactly the same thing. I wasn't feeling great. My kid wasn't doing well. And I needed to understand the science. And same thing with me. I stumbled onto the fact that there was a school like local. I could just drive to it.
Yeah.
So it was so similar stories. So really interesting.
Yeah. And I didn't look back. It was fantastic in what I was looking for from the get-go. It challenged me. It gave me answers from minute one. So that was, all that much more helpful, like I was just kind of eating it up, and food is everywhere, we can't ignore it.
Yeah.
So from minute one, once you understand a little bit more of what's going on, it impacts immediately, which was impactful for me.
Yeah, and you can see it. You can feel the changes. You can see the changes in your kids and your family. So yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how.
Yeah, great. So what year did you graduate? Remind me.
2011. So I'm at year 10. A
Yeah.
little bit. Next month we'll start year 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been and I've used it since I graduated. So 2 weeks after I graduated, I took an office, no clients, no plan, no nothing. Like I was like, we're doing this. And I, went to my office when I had no clients, and I started figuring it out, and I built a practice from there. A little nutty in hindsight, but part of my journey. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's back up. So you decided to open up your own practice, and you see clients one-on-one. Are you still in your office seeing clients one-on-one? Have you branched out and do online, or how does your practice kind of look?
So I am mostly one-on-one. I believe in personalized nutrition. And so, it works better for me if I can ask the hard questions and I don't have to cookie cutter it. And so I am primarily one-on-one. I will work with families. I will work with couples. I will work with friends as long as their goals are similar, but even then it's a little tricky because their bodies are different. But for the most part, I'm one-on-one, and probably will stick with that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's coming down the road, and life is always changing and shifting, but that has been changed with COVID. So I used to be one-on-one in office, and then for the past year, it's been one-on-one via Zoom, which is not as fun. I'm a person that gains energy through discussion and through clients. And so it's been hard to have that level of engagement. And so I'm excited to go back to partly in person, but I'll be probably a hybrid, and we'll see what comes down the pike. But I prefer one-on-one because I do believe we are that individualized. Like that's just a cornerstone of what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Now, before we started, you reminded me that your intent after you graduated was to work with sort of fertility and preconception. Are you still in that realm, or have you branched out? Like, is there a specialty that you have, or a niche area of practice?
Yeah, so I don't do fertility, and I don't do pregnancy, and I don't even work with little people. I don't. I work with school age and above. I love working with teenagers. I feel like if you can give teenagers good eating habits, you are giving them a lifelong, a life of understanding, and it's a beautiful thing. I work mostly with women, although not all women. I do healthy, holistic weight loss and digestion for the most part. That translates to then other issues. So, digestion is a huge umbrella. And so it could be acne, it could be skin issues, it could be migraines, it could be GERD, it could be, so many different things. And so digestion is kind of it's a little bit too broad, but that is something that I tackle. And then weight loss is another piece that just kind of happened. I would have struggled in the past with my own weight and body image. And so for the fact that I'm doing that is like a huge head scratcher. But I think because I come to it again, very organically, that there's a lot of compassion there, and we have figured it out and watched the science and are pretty good at it. So those are my kind of two things. The other is just family nutrition, which is very basic, getting your family off of packaged foods and onto whole foods, which is, again, kind of bread and butter for me personally.
Yeah.
So those are, those are the things that I talk about most often. Those are the things that are, you'll see highlighted on my website and social media and blah, 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 all of that stuff.
Nice. Okay. Good. Thank you for that. So one other kind of direction that I'd like to take the conversation is the board exam, BCHN board exam from NANP. So, we talk to our students and we always say that being board certified is not required in order for you to practice, but it certainly helps amplify the message that you're delivering, your credibility, and can just add to your list of things that make you a more reliable resource. So I would like if you could talk about kind of what made you decide to get board certified, and then if you could talk a little bit about what was the studying process, like the nuts and bolts of how did you study, what were the hardships that you found, and also did you find that your education at NTI gave you a certain sense of confidence in your ability to take the exam?
Yeah, that's a big question. So I decided at the end of my NTI studies that I was going to use this new master's certificate in a private practice. And I did that for logistics reasons. I wanted to be able to have control of my own day, and I wanted to be able to talk about what I wanted to talk about. I just didn't want to be beholden to anybody, and I knew that was an option, and I knew it was going to be kind of a tough road to build a practice, but that's what I decided to do. Mm-hmm. And so given the goal, I wanted the credibility of the board certification. I wanted to be able to say, I'm board certified in holistic nutrition. We in Colorado don't license, but I am nationally certified. And so that's what drove me. At the end of school, so having made that decision, I coupled with 3 other women who were also graduating, and we started immediately a weekly gathering. We looked at the board exam and we divided it up into 4 sections, and each section, each woman had a section and had to do a deep dive in each one of the areas in their section. And then we shared that information, and then we studied together. We picked a date for the exam and we backed into it. So I knew we were going to meet on Thursday and we were going to talk about this one section of the exam, and I had better be prepared. If it was my section, I had better be prepared with all the information that I needed to know and they needed to know, and then distribute that information. And so we were very regimented in how we studied for that. And I think we gave ourselves 12 weeks to study. And so in that 12 weeks, we were gathering the information, creating a study guide, distributing it, and then studying for it. And part of the information that we gathered at the end, we'd create, I think it was 50 questions about the study guide. And so we had practice questions that we created. Yeah. And so for each one of the line items that, they used to give you an outline. I'm not sure if they do anymore, but I thought they gave, for me, they gave an outline. So for each
They do have some sort of a study guide, so you at least have an idea of what topics to be prepared. Yeah.
Exactly. So for each topic item, we had a deep dive into what we had learned, but also into what was new, which was kind of the same thing because we had just graduated. And then a bunch of questions to solidify the information. And it worked great, and we all passed.
Yeah. That is a phenomenal way to prepare for the exam. So many people try to do it on their own, and certainly if that, if you're on your own, you come up with a system, and I would imagine you would want to do it the same system, except for you're doing all the work on each of the sections and creating your own, sample questions. But to work together with someone else. And now we're so used to being able to communicate with people online. You could be working with someone who's on the other side of the country.
Absolutely.
And still do the same thing, meet in person. And I think that's a phenomenal process that you took. That's awesome. Well, very good. Congratulations, even though it was a while ago. Congratulations on that. Okay, so let's see. I'm trying to think of what other questions I want to ask you about your practice, or maybe about the board exam. Anything else, like words of wisdom to share about being ready for the board exam, or just kind of like top level practice?
So
it could be a 2-hour long thing, but that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for, just like bits, strategies.
So I want to communicate that what you've learned at NTI, what I learned at NTI, I'll just speak for myself. What I learned at NTI gave me a very strong foundation into holistic nutrition, how the body uses food, how food breaks down, how nutrients absorb, how it impacts different systems. And all of that is reflected in the exam that you take. That is all, you're going to pull on all of that in order to take this exam. And then once you've taken the exam, you are starting to your journey. You might be practicing a little bit, but like legit, you can then say to yourself, or I said to myself, okay, I have what it takes I have a really strong foundation now, because I went through that schooling and I took that exam, and it proves that I have a strong foundation. But that's a foundation. Like, what am I going to do with it? And that is a lifelong question of what am I going to do with it? Where am I going to take it? How am I going to build off of it? So I know what I know, but now I have to figure out what I don't know that I want to know.
Yeah.
So for example, when I was going through school, and this again was a very long time ago, so I don't know where we are right now. I did not feel comfortable looking at labs for people. Like, I just didn't feel like I had what it took to look at labs. And so early on, I made a conscious decision, and I've loosened it over the years, but I made a conscious decision to stay in my lane. So if I wasn't comfortable looking at labs, I would say, tell me what your doctor said about these labs.
Yeah.
And I would stay in my food lane and squarely in my comfort level, because I knew for certain I had a good foundation underneath me with food. And so I feel like the schooling and the board gives you what you need to get to a comfort level, and then you have to figure out what you need on top of it and go get that. But you also have to, like, there's no need, you have enough to talk about what you know, and that is a lot more than a lot of other people have with regard to how food works in the body.
Yes.
And so you have what you have, and that's plenty. And then you have to decide how you want to talk about it, and then go out and get those little things that you feel like you don't have enough of. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that hopefully you would agree that upon graduation, the depth of knowledge that you have accumulated gives you the confidence to know that you will be able to layer on new information as you're learning every single day. And it won't be so burdensome or so challenging because you've got this really solid foundational understanding of the science.
Absolutely. So you can go out and you can get the pieces that you feel like, or the holes
Right.
you feel like you don't have.
Yeah.
And that's how continuing education goes anyway.
Right, exactly.
You know, like it's not going to give you the broad, it's going to give you the look, you can go learn about vitamin D if you feel like you need more information on vitamin D, or you can go learn about migraines if you feel like you want more information on migraines, and everything else under the sun. But at least you have that basis of, okay, food is this is what's happening. And yay for that. And now I just need like the icing on the cake in order to communicate a specific something to one of my clients.
Yeah, right. Yeah, in order to individualize it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make it applicable, very pointy, applicable to the problem that the client has.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. All right. Well said. Thank you. Yeah. Well, speaking of food, so do you have like things that food items that you rely on daily that you are like, I want to make sure that this is incorporated into my daily diet, my daily or family's diet or whatever? Do you have certain foods that you rely on specifically? What are kind of your food paradigm for your personal application in your own life?
So more than just food, like a food item, like an orange or something like that.
Yeah.
Most impactful for me has been blood sugar balance.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, that has changed and rocked our world for 20 years now. You know, like, and it is a foundation for what I talk about always for first clients. I always cover blood sugar balance. It is so important. And so when I talk about blood sugar balance, I talk about timed eating. And timed eating is some people love it, some people hate it. I find it to be, people, unless you say eat every 3 to 4 hours and set an alarm on your phone, if people are what I call a snake eater, meaning like they eat an enormous antelope once a day, they don't really understand the power of eating. And the body is as the machine, and you need to fuel the machine. And so for myself, for my family, for my friends, for my clients, that's a really, really important piece. And I don't believe that's your end game. I just think that you really need to get that under control, no matter what's going on, and then figure out what your body needs. So, we start a little cookie cutter and then we individualize from there. But to your end of like what food, is super important, I need to vary it, and I need to keep it seasonal. So I'm a very seasonal practitioner. So I am now talking a lot about asparagus and radishes and artichokes and parsley and the spring season vegetables, and how to cook them and how to create delicious food with them. Because I personally don't want to eat the same thing for lunch every single day. And I feel like that's a recipe for disaster. Like, they'll do that, people will do that for several months and then revert all the way back to bad eating habits. And if I can say, okay, eat this, here's some ideas for lunch. And then, 8 weeks later, I can say, and here's some more ideas for lunch. And the food is continually changing. It's very kind of uplifting and exciting and new, and it keeps their head in the game. as does me, you know, like for me as well. So I'm seasonal, and I make people eat a lot.
Yeah. Right, right. Yeah. So do you teach them cooking also, or are you just talking about like giving them recipes maybe, but are you actually teaching them cooking?
Well, so I don't go into their kitchens, and I don't make people cook.
Yeah.
My whole philosophy is you should be able, you're, you know, if you eat, you know, starting at the middle school level, you should be able to quote unquote throw things together and eat healthy food. My recipes are fairly basic, fairly easy, not 15 steps, maybe 3 at most.
Right.
So from that perspective, I kind of do.
Yeah.
I strongly encourage you get into the kitchen. And you really can't do this long term by eating out. You have to take hold. So it's a little bit of a mental block sometimes we have to get over. You have to take hold of your own food life. You just do. You don't have to ever walk into the grocery store, but you do have to get some stuff delivered. You don't, it's not about perfect, but you do have to create food for yourself. And so it's a little, it's not a prereq or a requirement with me, but I strongly encourage it.
Yeah.
And then I give them support. One of my favorite parts of my job is testing new recipes and coming up with new ideas, and you know, looking through cookbooks. It's just what drives me.
Yeah.
So that piece for me to give you a recipe, you know, if we're working together, that's like a happy place thing for me.
And of course you're trying them before you're
Right. Right, which keeps my head in the game too,
Right,
you know,
right.
and keeps my family fed, by the way.
There you go. Double duty.
Exactly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, I want to honor your time. And so I don't want to take up too much more of your time. I so much want to thank you. I've really enjoyed this conversation. It's been such a pleasure to reconnect with you and see you again. So before we leave, can you just tell our viewers and our listeners where to find you, any kind of social media stuff you do?
Absolutely. So my website is called Healthy Nest Nutrition. I do blog fairly regularly. So there's always kind of little deep dives into this, that, or the other, given kind of the things that I like to talk about. I'm on Instagram fairly often, as well as Facebook, Healthy Nest Nutrition. And we are just, you know, periodically I will do, you know, 20 salads. And so like I'm creating new spring recipes. I do that seasonally to keep it, you know, keep it fresh. And so there's, oh, you know, like that's another whole thing to talk about, but professionally, but we do try to have good ideas, you know, like we just try to give up to date, good information and just quick, good ideas, because we eat so often. I want to keep it very positive, fun, doable, and delicious.
Yeah. Yeah. Nice.
You know, like that's really important to me, is that food be approachable. And so I call that doable and delicious.
Oh yeah. I like that. Very nice.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, that's all I have. Thank you so much again. And I'm sure everybody's really going to enjoy listening to this, watching this, hearing you talk. Your passion comes through, your insight. And I think that's really, really fantastic. So thank you. So we will end it here. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you, Diane.
Thanks.